Good morning, dear students. Shall we begin with the lecture?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, last time, unfortunately, there was some problem with the internet and I couldn't continue with the lecture. So I'm going to repeat whatever I had said last time. And before that, we had started with chemolithotrophy. We have seen the definition, some important terms also we had seen, and basic introduction to chemolithotrophy. We have seen the different types of electron acceptor donor couples. Okay, and then I told you that because of the difference in the standard reduction potentials, these pairs are either effective as effective as energy suppliers, you can say, or they are not very effective depending upon their standard reduction potential. Okay, then I think we have seen hydrogen as the electron donor. Yes, the hydrogenase enzymes we have seen. Then we have seen sulfur compounds as electron donors. Okay, different steps involved in sulfur oxidation, rather oxidation of sulfur compounds. And then today we are going to see something about a very interesting group of organisms which are called as ion oxidizers. Okay, so they carry out the reaction which is called as ion oxidation. And one very important thing about this particular process is that it generates a very small amount of energy. It is not comparable to the energy which is obtained from the electrons which are taken from organic molecules. Okay, so organic molecules would supply larger amount of energy, for example, succinate or malate. But if iron is used as the electron donor, then somehow the energy is not very much in amount. Okay, but still these organisms survive because nonetheless the whatever amount of energy is released, that is enough for you can say generating ATP, at least 1 mole of ATP. Okay, and therefore it is still favorable for these organisms. We are going to see some details of these organisms. These are mostly aerobic organisms because oxygen is used as the terminal electron acceptor. Okay, so always remember this, that if oxygen is a terminal electron acceptor, then the organisms are aerobic. If some other compound or other molecule is the electron acceptor, terminal electron acceptor, then these organisms are anaerobic. And some organisms can use either oxygen as a terminal electron acceptor or some other compound depending upon the environmental conditions, availability of oxygen. Okay, and therefore these organisms are grouped under the facultative aerobes. Okay, the ion oxidizing bacteria are therefore aerobic organisms. They are chemolithotrophic. Okay, that is to say they can use an inorganic source of electrons. That is here we are studying the organisms which are using iron as the electron donor. So they are lithotrophic organisms, and they are also autotrophic organisms because they can use CO2 as the sole source of carbon. Okay, CO2 as the sole source of carbon, right? Now what happens is the iron is in the ferrous form. Okay, ferrous because it is Fe2 plus. It has electrons which can be donated, right? And then because of the electron transfer, this ferrous is converted to ferric ion, that is Fe3 plus, 3 plus because one electron is lost. Okay, and then this ferric state is further converted into an insoluble state because it is in water. Okay, aqueous medium, and therefore this ferric state is converted into what is called as a precipitate of ferrous hydroxide. Okay, FeOH3. And then if you are actually doing this practical, now unfortunately we are not in the laboratory. Okay, then I would have shown you that these organisms they make these precipitates in the medium. Okay, and that precipitate is observed in the form of some crystals. Okay, crystalline precipitates are all formed and they are called as jarosite. Okay, if it is possible, then you can browse the internet and try to find out whether some images are available for this FeOH3 precipitates. Okay, then the medium is acidic. Okay, the organisms are growing in an acidic condition. The reason is that ferrous ion remains very stable in the oxic condition. That is, when oxygen is available, the organisms are aerobic. Just remember this. And when oxygen is present, then ferrous ions will remain stable only in the acidic condition. Okay, if the conditions are alkaline, then ferrous ion will not remain stable. Ferrous will be converted immediately to ferric and it will precipitate. Okay, it will form the ferric hydroxide precipitate. So that is chemical conversion of ferrous to ferric that happens in the alkaline or neutral conditions. Okay, then these organisms are therefore commonly found in acid polluted environments because these are acidophilic organisms. Okay, for example, acid mine drainages or coal mining dumps, these are the common sites where these organisms can be isolated from. Okay, we have these examples: Acidithiobacillus ferroxidans. Last time we have seen Acidithiobacillus thioxidans. Okay, that was able to use sulfur compounds as the electron donor. Now this organism is able to use iron as the electron donor, and so it is called Acidithiobacillus ferroxidans. Okay, although to some extent it can also use sulfur compounds as the electron donor. Okay, another organism is Leptospirillum ferroxidans. Okay, there are many other organisms. I think you can find out the other names. And I have given you one assignment last time. Some students have already submitted it. And that assignment is about finding out the morphological features of ion oxidizing bacteria, different types of ion oxidizing bacteria, and also to find out the cultural characteristics of these organisms. Okay, how they are grown, which medium is used for cultivating these organisms. Okay, and things like that, right? So you can find this information from internet, or if you have some books, basic microbiology books, there also you might find out this information. Okay, then last time I think I was trying to tell you about this importance of neutral pH. Okay, at the neutral pH, ferrous ions will be remaining stable. Okay, they can remain stable, but only when the conditions are anoxic, that is, oxygen is not present. Okay, the problem here is the organisms require oxygen. Okay, so the environment is oxic environment, and in oxic environment, the ferrous ions will remain stable only in the acidic condition. Okay, if the conditions are neutral, then the condition should be anaerobic or anoxic conditions, and this is not useful for the organism because organisms are aerobic, right? But the interesting thing is that neutral pH actually is favorable from the energy point of view. Okay, so I'll just tell you why it is so. That is in the acidic condition. Okay, just look here, I have written in red color. If the conditions are acidic, for example, the pH is 2, then the ferric ferrous pair, okay, this redox couple will have a standard reduction potential of plus 0.77. Okay, when I say plus 0.77, that is the positive side, higher positive side, then we already know that these pairs are not able to donate the electron. They are poor donors of electron. That is to say, the ferrous ion will not be able to donate the electron very easily when when the pH is acidic. Okay, but look at this: when the pH is neutral, then the redox potential of this particular pair is 0.2 volt, and that is to say the ferrous ion can give the electrons more easily. Okay, so now this is you can say contrasting situation. On one hand, I'm saying that when the pH is neutral, iron is not available in aerobic conditions. Okay, iron is unstable. It forms the ferric ion more easily, and that gets converted, that gets precipitated to ferric hydroxide. Okay, that is in the neutral condition. But on the other hand, if the conditions are neutral, then the standard redox potential of ferrous ion is more it is less positive. It is just plus 0.2 volt, and therefore from the energy point of view, this particular ion is capable of donating the electrons more easily, and therefore the organisms will be able to generate the energy more efficiently. Okay. Am I clear to all of you? Nobody is answering me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Aishwarya, I think you are able to understand what I'm saying. Okay, Prashant. Prashant, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
And did you understand this concept? This is very important. Okay. If you want to understand what is chemolithotrophy or how different groups of organisms stay in different environments altogether, then understanding this concept is very, very important. Okay, because this is the heart of metabolic processes. Okay, energy metabolism I'm talking about. Anybody else who has not understood? Akash, Bharat. Akash and Bharat, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bharat, are you there? Is your mobile with you? Are you carrying your mobile or you are somewhere away? Bharat. I think either Bharat cannot hear me or he is unable to receive my question. Okay, Shraddha,
Yes, sir.
Anuradha,
Yes, sir.
you are just saying yes, sir, yes, sir. But when it comes to the internal exam, then I see that your performance is not very good. You are making very silly mistakes in the understanding of the question. Okay, and therefore you are not answering the questions properly. Dheeraj, Sudarshan,
Yes, sir.
Dheeraj, are you there? Prahlad,
Yes, sir.
Pragati, Sonali, Vaishnavi,
Yes, sir.
Vaishnavi and Inamul.
Yes, sir.
Inamul, are you here? Are you
Yes, sir. Yes.
okay? Inamul, I
Hello.
think you joined again later. So did you follow what I?
Sir, no, sir. Actually, my internet went off.
Okay, okay, but you got this concept clearly. Okay, what I'm telling you is that this is a very contrasting situation where I'm saying on one hand that acidic pH is favorable because iron remains in soluble form, iron remains in the stable form. Okay, and because the conditions are aerobic. Okay, organisms are aerobic. But if the conditions are neutral, if the pH is neutral, then iron will remain stable only if the pH is if only if the conditions are anaerobic. But that is not good for the organisms. Organisms are aerobic, and therefore at the neutral pH, iron should not remain very stable. But on the other hand, the redox potential of this particular pair is lower, okay, towards the lower positive side, and therefore this particular pair is easily able to give away the electron. That is, ferrous ion is able to give the electron easily and get converted to the ferric ion. Okay, and therefore the organisms are able to derive energy from this mineral more easily if the pH is neutral. Okay, so very interesting and contrasting features we have seen here, right? But what we should actually regard here is the availability of iron is more important for the organism. Okay, even if the energy derivation is rather more difficult in the acidic pH, even then, because the iron is available in plentiful supply at the acidic pH, we should go for this particular condition where the pH of the medium is acidic. And therefore, normally when we grow these organisms in the laboratory, we grow them in an acidic medium. Okay, the medium is called as, what is the medium? Some students have already done the assignment, so they should be able to tell me what is the medium used for growing acidithiobacillus, thioxidants or ferroxidants.
Silverman.
What is it?
Silverman.
Silverman's medium. Okay, yes, this was the scientist who has devised this medium, but it has a special name. It has a different name actually.
Lundgren and Silverman.
Yes, Lundgren and Silverman. Yes,
Yes.
you're right. Okay, so you have done some homework. That is good. This medium is called 9K medium. Okay, 9K medium. Right? You can again refer to some of the literature and then find out whether what I have told is correct or not. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, is this pH only work on iron only, ferrous? Isn't it work on another ions like magnesium and others?
Maybe that is true because most of the metals will get precipitated at neutral to alkaline pH. Okay, that is the case with most of the metals. Okay, they remain stable or they remain in soluble form in an acidic pH. Okay, but of course,
Yes.
different metals will have different solubilities at different pH. So depending upon the solubility of each metal, we have to design the medium. Okay, magnesium, manganese, for example, will remain stable at a little more higher pH. Okay, it is not necessary to have a acidic pH, very highly acidic pH for these metals. Okay,
Yes, sir.
copper also will get more easily precipitated at a neutral pH. Copper, lead, cadmium, okay, cobalt, nickel, zinc, all these metals will get precipitated when you increase the pH. Okay, so then coming to Aishwarya had asked me some question last time, and then I think she has forgotten to ask me the question again or to get the answer. Okay, your question your question was about ATP. Okay, why there is more energy in the terminal phosphate bond, isn't it? And then, as I told you, the answer was related to the stress on the molecule, and I think I was closer to the answer when I found out the literature. I searched the literature, and then I found that the electrostatic interactions are more if in the ATP molecule as such, in the complete ATP molecule. But if it is the ADP molecule or AMP molecule, then because the phosphate groups are lesser in number, the electrostatic interactions are lesser. Okay, so if the electrostatic interactions are more for a particular molecule, then of course the that molecule will be more unstable. Like ATP molecule is more unstable compared to ADP, and ADP is more unstable compared to AMP. Okay, so this energy which is derived from that cleavage of the bond actually derives from the instability of the molecule. If the molecule is more unstable, then there will be more energy associated with the particular terminal bond of that molecule. Is it okay, Aishwarya? I hope you could hear me. Okay, you were talking right about the electrostatic interactions. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But
I got it.
electrostatic interactions are more for the ATP molecule, and therefore it is more unstable. Okay, and therefore it liberates more energy upon hydrolysis. Okay, so then coming back to the respiratory chain of the ion oxidizing bacteria, this particular slide is very, very important. Okay, so pay more attention. I'm also going to show you a schematic representation, and that will make most of the things very clear to you. Okay, so the first thing we should remember is because the redox potential of ion is high, it is on the positive side. Okay, therefore we can understand that giving the electron is a little more difficult for this particular ion. Okay, and therefore the electron transport chain for this particular electron donor, okay, if ion is the electron donor, then the electron transport chain is a bit shorter compared to the typical one that we have for organic molecule and oxygen. Okay, that is the longest electron transport chain, and therefore energy liberated from that particular electron transport chain is more compared to the energy liberated with iron as the electron donor. Okay, electron transport chain is shorter. This you can just remember what I'm telling. Okay, and then the Fe oxidation, that is the release of electrons from the iron, ferrous iron, begins actually in the periplasm. What is periplasm? It is the space between the inner and outer membranes of the bacterial cell. Okay, there is cytochrome C2 molecule in the outer membrane. Okay, this is called the outer membrane cytochrome C. Okay, and this is the one which gets the electrons from the ferrous iron. Okay, so iron actually is in the medium. Okay, the electron is taken within the membrane where in the periplasmic space where cytochrome C2 is present. Cytochrome C2 takes up the electrons, and therefore the ferrous ion is converted into the ferric ion, Fe3+. Okay, so this is just a one single electron transfer. Okay, now this cytochrome C2, which is there in the periplasmic space, okay, this reduces rustcyanine molecule. Okay, rustcyanine is a special molecule, a protein which contains copper ion. So it is also called as a blue protein. Blue because you know that copper solution appears blue in color. Okay, so because it contains blue, because it contains copper, this particular protein is also called as a blue protein. Okay, this is again a periplasmic protein. And this protein takes up the electrons from cytochrome C2. Yeah, there was some problem with the connection. Okay, so rustcyanine reduces, once rustcyanine gets the electrons, then these electrons are passed on to another cytochrome C, which is called as cytochrome C1. Okay, and then from cytochrome C1, the electrons go to a complex, which is called as cytochrome AA3 complex. Okay, and from cytochrome AA3 complex, the electrons then go to cytochrome AA3 is the one which can translocate two protons in the periplasmic space. That is to say, cytochrome AA3 complex is a proton pump. Okay, just like we have seen in photosynthesis and respiration, we have seen cytochrome BC1 complex, we have seen the cytochrome B6F complex. Okay, so similarly, this particular complex called cytochrome AA3 complex is the one which can translocate two protons in the periplasmic space when it gets reduced. Okay, and therefore these protons are now essential, or they take part in developing the proton gradient, and the proton gradient would then give rise to ATP molecule. Okay, so that is ATP synthesis. Now this cytochrome A3 complex is in the inner membrane. Okay, so we are coming from the outer membrane to the periplasmic space and now to the inner membrane. Okay, so in the inner membrane, cytochrome AA3 complex reduces oxygen. Okay, and this oxygen will then go on to form water molecule, and this water molecule is also very important because now this is generated in the cytoplasm. Okay, and it is very much essential for maintaining the pH of the cell within the cell. Okay, because outside pH is highly acidic and the cell must survive. The inner pH, inside pH must be maintained so that the cell survives properly. Okay, shall we go to the schematic diagram? I have modified this diagram slightly. I have taken the basic diagram from the internet. Okay, and then according to the understanding which I got from reading the literature, okay, I have modified this diagram, and then I think probably this will be helpful to you. Okay, so just look at this side here where I have written here respiration. Okay, you can see this vertical oval shape structure here. Okay, so we are going to see here iron is present outside in the medium. Okay, and there is this cytochrome C2 which is present in the outer membrane. Okay, and this cytochrome C2 is taking electrons from ferrous. Ferrous is getting converted into ferric. Okay, this ferric will subsequently form a precipitate which is called ferric hydroxide. Okay, and this, as I told you, that this precipitate is called as jarosite. Okay, so we have the precipitation happening in the medium. okay, extracellular medium, right? Electron which is taken from the ferrous ion is taken up by cytochrome C2, and this cytochrome C2 would then give the electrons to rustcyanine. This is a special protein which is present in the periplasmic space. Okay, from rustcyanine, the electron goes to cytochrome C1. And from cytochrome C1, the electron goes to this complex, which I told you that this is cytochrome AA3 complex. And this AA3 complex, because it is a proton pump, it will take up the protons from the medium, and these protons are actually pumped outside, okay, in the periplasmic space. And therefore, a huge proton gradient will be formed in the periplasmic space, right? Okay, I think I have 7 to 8 minutes for this presentation to be over. And after that, don't go anywhere, because I'm going to again restart this meeting immediately. Okay, because I'll take another say 15 minutes or so to complete this particular topic. Okay. Well, so because this AA3 complex is a proton pump, the proton is being driven out to create a gradient, proton gradient, and that proton gradient will eventually be used up to synthesize ATP molecule using this ATPase enzyme or ATP synthase enzyme, which is present in the inner membrane. Okay, it is projecting inside in the cytoplasm where ADP is present. ADP and PI will be converted to ATP. So was that part clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall I take a small pause so that you can digest what I have told you? Okay, you can just look at this figure. Ferrous ion, electron taken up by cytochrome C2, ferrous getting converted to ferric. Ferric ions are getting precipitated in the form of jarosite. Okay, electrons are being taken up by rustcyanine. Okay, rustcyanine is reduced. Rustcyanine will then reduce cytochrome C1. Cytochrome C1 will then reduce cytochrome AA3 complex. Cytochrome AA3 complex is a proton pump. So protons are pumped outside in the periplasmic space. Okay, this will generate a proton gradient that will be used up to synthesize ATP. Okay, now the electrons which are taken by AA3 complex, these are then used to convert oxygen into water. That is to say, oxygen is finally reduced to water. Okay, and again, we should remember that oxygen is the terminal electron acceptor. Okay, because these organisms are aerobic, oxygen is finally taking up the electrons and oxygen is getting converted into water. This step is very important because when the electrons are used up to convert oxygen into water, this is actually essential to maintain the pH of the cytoplasm inside the cell. I hope it is very clear to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then another important thing is that at the pH of 2, the pH is very high, okay, in the periplasmic space because protons are being pumped in the periplasmic space. Okay, the medium pH also is very high, and therefore it is additionally supporting the large proton gradient which is there across the membrane. Okay, so the medium pH also is playing some important role. The protons are getting inside in the periplasmic space. Okay, and that is why there is a huge potential gradient which is created across the membrane. Okay, the periplasm pH is 1.5 to 2.5 units compared to the cytoplasm pH, which is about 5.5 to 6. Okay, that is to say, in the ordinary bacteria, this difference is quite less. It is a difference of about 1 or 2 pH units at the most. Okay, but here the pH difference is very high, and that is important for generating the ATP molecule. Okay, and therefore, as long as ferrous ion is available in the medium as the electron donor, ATP can be synthesized by the proton motive force. Okay, this proton motive force is naturally existing across the cytoplasmic membrane. Okay. Then another important part is probably you might have the question that how about generating the reducing power? Okay, ATP is generated, that is true, but we also need reducing power. This reducing power will be required because we want to fix carbon dioxide. The organisms are autotrophic. Carbon dioxide must be fixed to form the carbohydrates. Okay, and for that, the reducing power in the form of NADH is required by the cells. The cells will also require ATP for CO2 fixation. Now, this ATP is already generated. We have already seen that. Okay, but how is the reducing power generated? That we are going to see. Okay, and this part is going to be very interesting. Just for reference, I have put here the electron transport chain of the purple bacteria that we have already seen. It is a cyclic form of electron transport chain. And then I had asked you this question. I had given you an assignment about how the reducing power is generated in the purple bacteria. And some of the students have given me the assignment and they have already given me the correct answer, saying that reducing power is generated by what is called as the reverse electron flow. Okay, so why reverse electron flow is required? Here again in chemolithotrophy also reverse electron flow is necessary. Okay, so why it is necessary and how it is actually carried out, that we are going to see. Okay, the ferrous ion oxidation is taking place in the periplasm. Okay, so when the electrons are taken from the iron, ferrous ion, the electrons are actually taken up by cytochrome C2. Okay, this is present in the outer membrane, and that is how the ferrous ion is converted to ferric ion. Okay, then we have seen that cytochrome C2 reduces rusticinin. Okay, rusticinin reduces cytochrome A1. Okay, and then from here the electrons go to cytochrome A3 complex in the case of chemolithotrophic organisms, and if it is the purple bacterium, then it is cytochrome BC1 complex. Okay, from cytochrome BC1 complex, the electrons are going to quinone molecule. Can you see it here? Quinone here. Okay, and from the quinone, when the electrons are taken by the quinone gets reduced, and when it is reduced, when it gets 2 electrons, then it becomes QH2. Okay, and this QH2 when it is reduced, then it will be able to reduce. Then the electrons go to this cytochrome C2. Okay, and it is coming back in the cyclic form. Okay, but then these electrons from Q must be given to NAD dehydrogenase. Okay, and from NAD dehydrogenase, the electrons will go to NAD plus, and then NADH will be formed. That is, the reducing power will be formed. Okay, but for this particular flow of electrons, that is to say, from cytochrome BC1 complex or cytochrome AA3 complex in the chemolithotrophs, the electron should go to quinone molecule, and from the quinone molecule, it should go to NAD. Okay, now this particular flow of electrons, actually, can you see it from the diagram? That the electron transport should happen in a reverse order. Okay, why that is so? That is because the reduction potential of this NADH molecule is on the positive side. Okay, it is not on the negative side, or it is not on the lower positive side, but NADH is somewhere here. NAD is somewhere here. And the electron should come from quinone to NAD, isn't it? That is to say, from AA3 complex, the electron should go to quinone, and from quinone, the electron should go to NAD. And that essentially means that electron should go in a reverse order. Okay, that is from a lower positive side to higher positive side, NAD. Is it clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
And because the
Yes,
because the electron should go in a reverse way, okay, to the quinone molecule, and from the quinone to NAD, that requires energy. Thermodynamically, it is not a favorable reaction. It will not happen automatically. It is not an exergonic reaction, but it is an endergonic reaction. And this endergonic reaction of reverse electron transfer will require energy in the form of ATP, right? So generating the reducing power itself will require ATP, right? And therefore these organisms require a large amount of ATP, okay, to grow, that is to build the biomass.